Did you know that over 25 legendary heavy metal stars who once shook the world with their music are no longer with us? From the raw power of Iron Maiden's first voice, Paul Di'Anno, to the unforgettable growls of death metal pioneer Lars-Göran Petrov. Here are 25 heavy metal stars you didn't know had passed away. 1. Paul Di'Anno, 1958 to 2024. Paul Di'Anno was the voice that helped Iron Maiden take its first steps, but his time in the spotlight was cut short. From 1978 to 1981, his rough, aggressive vocals shaped the band's early sound on their debut albums, Iron Maiden and Killers. His presence was undeniable, but behind the scenes, personal struggles with addiction led to his departure. His voice had the raw energy that fit the band perfectly, but it also carried the weight of his personal demons. While Iron Maiden soared to greater heights, Di'Anno found himself struggling to hold on to a fading dream. After leaving the band, Di'Anno jumped from one project to another, hoping to recreate the magic. He formed bands like Battlezone and Killers, but none reached the same success as his early days. His life became a cycle of comebacks and setbacks, each more exhausting than the last. His body took a serious toll from years of hard living, leading to severe health problems. Despite being confined to a wheelchair in his final years, he never let go of his love for music. But even the strongest fighters have limits, and in 2024, Paul Di'Anno's journey came to an end at 66. 2. Lars-Göran Petrov, 1972 to 2021. Lars-Göran L.G. Petrov wasn't just another death metal vocalist. He was a defining force in the genre. As the frontman of Entombed, his guttural growls gave albums like Left Hand Path and Wolverine Blues their unmistakable intensity. His voice wasn't just noise, it was a battle cry leading the charge for Swedish death metal. He helped build a sound that countless bands would later try to copy, but few could match his raw power. Fans couldn't get enough, and for decades, he was the unstoppable force behind some of the most brutal music in the genre. But no matter how strong a man may seem, time has a way of catching up. In 2021, the world was shocked to learn that Petrov had been diagnosed with bile duct cancer, an aggressive and unforgiving disease. The battle was short and brutal, taking him down in less than a year. He was only 49. For a man who had spent his life roaring through speakers and shaking the ground with his voice, the silence left behind was deafening. His death sent shockwaves through the metal world, a reminder that even legends aren't invincible. 3. Steve Grimmett, 1959 to 2022. Steve Grimmett had a voice that could shake walls, earning him a devoted following as the frontman of Grim Reaper. Tracks like See You in Hell and Fear No Evil cemented his place in heavy metal history, and his dramatic stage presence kept fans hooked. His high-pitched wails could send chills down spines, making him one of the most unforgettable voices in metal. He lived for the stage, delivering powerful performances that left fans in awe. But as the years passed, his body started to betray him. In 2017, Grimmett faced a nightmare that would have crushed most musicians. An infection led to the amputation of his leg. Most would have called it quits, but not him. He returned to the stage, performing with a prosthetic leg, refusing to let tragedy stop him. His resilience was inspiring, proof that his passion for music was stronger than any physical setback. But even the toughest fighters can only take so much. In 2022, at the age of 62, Grimmett passed away, leaving behind a legacy of pure, unshakable metal spirit. Eric Wagner, 1959 to 2021. Eric Wagner's haunting vocals made Trouble one of doom metal's most memorable bands. Since 1979, his unique voice carried the band through the decades, influencing an entire genre along the way. His slow, melancholic melodies made doom metal feel heavier than ever, pulling listeners into dark and emotional depths. It wasn't just about the music, it was about the atmosphere, the feeling of something larger looming over every note. Wagner didn't just sing. He made listeners feel every word, every sorrow, every moment of despair. Despite his success with Trouble, he wasn't content with staying in one place. He formed new projects like Blackfinger and The Skull, proving that his creativity knew no limits. Fans expected to hear his eerie voice for many more years, but fate had different plans. In 2021, COVID-19 complications took him at 62, a death that felt almost unreal. The man whose voice had defined sorrow was now gone, leaving behind an empty space that no one could ever fill. 5. James Kotak, 1962 to 2024. James Kotak spent years behind the drum kit, driving Scorpion's high-energy sound from 1996 onward. His talent extended beyond one band, with stints in Kingdom Come and Warrant, proving his versatility. No matter the band, he had a way of making the drums feel alive, pounding each beat with precision and energy. He was more than a musician. He was a showman, known for his wild performances and larger-than-life personality. But that same energy that made him a legend also led him down a darker path. For years, Kotak battled alcoholism, a struggle that became more and more public over time. There were arrests, controversies, and public breakdowns, each one adding to the growing concern over his well-being. Despite attempts to get back on track, the damage was done. His passing in 2024 at the age of 61 wasn't just a loss for music. It was a tragic reminder of how the rock and roll lifestyle can take its toll. Even the best drummers can't outrun the consequences forever. 6. Jerry Abbott, 1942 to 2024. Jerry Abbott never stood at the front of a stage, but his impact on heavy metal was undeniable. As the father and mentor of Pantera's Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul, his influence shaped one of the genre's most legendary bands. He wasn't just a father, he was a producer, a guide, the steady hand behind the scenes that helped Pantera rise to fame. Without him, the world might never have heard the groundbreaking sounds that changed heavy metal forever. His work extended beyond his sons, producing albums and helping shape the careers of other musicians. But despite his success in the music world, his name was never the one in flashing lights. He was the foundation, the one who built the stage but never stood on it. And like so many who worked behind the scenes, his passing in 2024 at the age of 80 didn't make the headlines it should have. His legacy, however, is impossible to ignore. The world lost a key player in heavy metal, and his influence will be felt for generations to come. 7. C.J. Snare, 1960 to 2024. C.J. Snare was more than just a singer. He was the soul of Firehouse. His voice, powerful and filled with emotion, gave life to songs that fans still sing today. Hits like Love of a Lifetime and Don't Treat Me Bad weren't just music, they were anthems that defined a generation. Firehouse rose to international fame in the early 1990s, and Snare never let go of his passion. He performed until his final days, refusing to step away from the music he loved. Even as years passed, his voice never faded. Fans still clung to his melodies, and he continued delivering unforgettable performances. But 2024 brought a heartbreaking loss. At 64, the man who had once filled arenas with his soaring vocals was gone. Yet his voice remains, locked in the songs that made him a legend. Firehouse may play on, but without Snare, it will never sound the same. His death left a hole in the rock world that no one can fill. Will rock ever see another voice with such fire? 8. Rita, 1982 to 2024. Rita wasn't just a bassist. He was a force in the visual K movement. As part of the Gazette, he helped push Japanese rock into new territories. His bass lines weren't just notes, they were the backbone of a band that reshaped metal in Japan. His stage presence was unmistakable, from his bold look to his electrifying performances. The Gazette took risks, blending heavy metal with stunning visuals, and Rita stood at the heart of it all. Fans saw him as more than a musician. He was a symbol of a movement. But 2024 delivered shocking news. At only 42, Rita passed away, leaving behind a legacy that stretched across continents. His music carried a power that few could match, and his absence will be deeply felt. The Gazette's sound will never be the same without his thunderous bass. His loss is more than just personal. It is a tragedy for an entire genre. Can the visual K movement survive without one of its greatest icons? 9. Eddie Sutton, 1965 to 2024. Eddie Sutton wasn't afraid to be loud. As the frontman of Leeway, he brought an intensity that couldn't be ignored. His voice was raw, gritty, and filled with the fire of New York's hardcore scene. Leeway stood at the crossroads of punk and metal, and Sutton's fearless approach to music helped define that sound. His influence stretched beyond the underground, reaching bands who would take thrash and hardcore to new heights. Fans who saw him perform knew they were witnessing something special, but 2024 delivered the unthinkable. Sutton passed away at 59, leaving behind a legacy built on energy, rebellion, and pure passion. Hardcore music has lost a key figure, and those who knew his voice will never forget it. His impact is woven into the DNA of heavy music, shaping the way bands perform today. His absence leaves a silence that can never be filled. Will the hardcore scene ever see another frontman with such raw energy? And Robin George, 1956 to 2024. Robin George didn't just play the guitar, he made it sing. His talent carried him through decades of rock and metal, shaping songs that still resonate today. Whether working with Robert Plant or Glenn Hughes, George left his mark on every project he touched. His solo hit, Heartline, proved his songwriting skill, creating melodies that stuck with listeners long after the music stopped. He wasn't just another guitarist, he was an artist, painting emotions with every note. But in 2024, the rock world lost a true craftsman. George's passing at 68 marked the end of an era, one filled with passion, precision, and powerful performances. Even in his final years, he continued creating, refusing to let his spark fade. His music remains a testament to a career built on skill and dedication. The loss is immeasurable, and the silence left behind is deafening. 11. Jeff Hanneman, 1964-2013. Jeff Hanneman wasn't just a guitarist. He was the architect of Slayer's brutal, unrelenting sound. His riffs cut through the noise, defining the thrash metal movement with precision and speed. Songs like Angel of Death and Raining Blood became anthems of aggression, pushing metal to its limits. Slayer would not have been the same without Hanneman's dark, intricate songwriting. But even legends are not invincible. In 2011, he suffered a devastating health crisis after contracting necrotizing fasciitis, a flesh-eating infection that nearly destroyed his arm. The illness robbed him of his ability to play, pulling him away from the music he built. Then, in 2013, tragedy struck again. Hanneman passed away at 49 due to liver failure, a loss that sent shockwaves through the metal community. Slayer carried on, but his absence was impossible to ignore. His riffs still echo through every band he inspired, proving his influence can never die. 12. Frank Watkins, 1968-2015. Frank Watkins didn't just play bass, he made it shake the earth. As a member of Obituary, he helped create a sound that was as crushing as it was unforgettable. His deep, thunderous bass lines defined death metal's heaviest moments, giving Obituary the weight that set them apart. But Watkins wasn't content to stay in one genre. In 2007, he joined Gorgoroth under the name Bodil, proving his talent stretched beyond death metal. He embraced black metal's darkness with the same intensity, cementing his status as a musician who thrived in the heaviest corners of music. Then, in 2015, tragedy struck. Watkins lost his battle with cancer at only 47, a devastating blow to both genres he helped shape. His playing may have stopped, but his influence still rumbles through the heaviest records. Metal lost a powerhouse that day, and the silence is deafening. 13. Mikola Amorth Sostin, 1985-2024. Mikola Sostin, better known as Amorth, was not just a drummer. He was a force that shook the Ukrainian black metal scene. His beats were more than just sound. They were the pounding heart of a dark and powerful genre. Every time he sat behind the drums, he brought a raw, unfiltered energy that made every track feel alive. His work with Drudk added a haunting depth, turning their music into something beyond just songs. It became an experience. The underground metal world took notice, but his talent wasn't limited to one band. He played with many Ukrainian metal groups, proving over and over again that his drumming was not just noise, it was art. Then everything changed. The music he lived for had to be put aside. Amorth felt a different call, one that was far from the stage and the studio. He joined the military, stepping away from the drums and into a world of war. It was a decision that would cost him his life. In 2024, at only 39, he died in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Just like that, his music was silenced. His hands, which once brought drums to life, would never play again. His unfinished songs will never be completed. Fans are left with only what he created before fate took him away. His loss is more than just the end of a musician. It is the loss of a voice that spoke through rhythm. How many more artists will be lost to war? How many more songs will never be written? Mykola Sostin's death is a painful reminder that war does not just take lives. It steals dreams, it ends futures, and it leaves silence where there should have been sound. His music will live on, but the man behind it is gone, leaving behind a void that cannot be filled. The metal world will never be the same. His voice, once filled with power and emotion, has been silenced, yet its echoes will never fade. Every note he left behind now carries a deeper weight, a reminder of what was lost and what should have been. 14. John Sykes, 1959 to 2024. John Sykes was not just another guitarist. He was the kind of musician who left a mark so deep that even time cannot erase it. His fingers could make a guitar weep, scream, and roar all in the same song. His work with Thin Lizzy, Whitesnake, and Blue Murder was nothing short of legendary. Songs like Still of the Night and Is This Love were more than just music. They were the soundtracks of a generation. He shaped rock and metal, influencing countless guitarists who tried to match his skill. But despite his talent, he never chased fame the way others did. He let his music speak for itself. As the years passed, Sykes became more of a ghost in the industry. He stepped back from the spotlight, leaving fans wondering where he had gone. The music world moved forward, but his name was still whispered in reverence by those who understood his genius. And then, in 2024, came the news no one wanted to hear. John Sykes had lost his battle with cancer. At 65, he was gone. The hands that once created magic on the guitar would never play again. His voice, his talent, his passion, all silenced forever. How does a legend fade away? How does someone so vital to music disappear while others barely take notice? His death is not just a personal loss for his fans. It is a loss for music itself. The industry is quick to celebrate new stars, but slow to remember the ones who built the foundation. Sykes deserved more, but now it is too late. The rock world keeps turning, but his absence is a hole that cannot be filled. His music will keep playing, his solos will still electrify, but the man behind it all is no longer here, and that is a tragedy that cannot be undone. 15. Greg Fritz Hinz, 1956 to 2024. Greg Fritz Hinz was not a household name, but he should have been. As the drummer for Helix, he was the force that kept their rebellious, energetic sound alive. His drumming wasn't just background noise, it was the fire that pushed every song forward. Without him, Helix wouldn't have had the same power, the same grit, or the same unstoppable drive. Hits like No Rest for the Wicked and Long Way to Heaven thrived because of his relentless energy. He was the kind of musician who made rock feel alive. But time is unforgiving. The music industry moved on. Helix, once a force in the rock scene, faded from the spotlight. Yet Fritz never stopped playing. He kept the beat going long after the world stopped watching. He lived for the music, even when it didn't bring him the fame he deserved. And then in 2024, at 68, he was gone. Another rock legend, slipping away. How many more musicians will be lost before people start paying attention? Why do we only honor them after they are gone? Fritz Hinz gave everything to music, but when the world looks back, will they remember? Or will he become just another name on a long list of forgotten legends? His drumming drove the pulse of a band, yet now his absence is met with silence. The rock world has lost another great, and there will never be another like him. Music is full of stars, but not all of them get the recognition they deserve. Fritz was one of those, the kind of musician who kept the spirit of rock alive without asking for anything in return. But now he is gone, and the world will never hear another beat from his drums. His music still plays, but the man behind it is no longer there, and that is a loss too great to measure. 16. Vitaly Kuprij, 1975 to 2024. Vitaly Kuprij was a force unlike any other, a musician who played the piano like it was part of his soul. He didn't just press keys, he attacked them, creating music that blended the beauty of classical compositions with the fire of heavy metal. Every note he played was filled with power, speed, and precision, making him a rare talent in the world of neoclassical metal. His work with Artension, Ring of Fire, and the Trans-Siberian Orchestra should have made him a household name, but for reasons that remain frustrating, it never did. Despite his unmatched skills, he spent most of his career in the background, his talent appreciated only by those who truly understood what they were hearing. How does someone so brilliant go unnoticed by the wider world? His compositions were like storms, wild, unpredictable, and breathtaking. Yet somehow, the music industry let him slip through the cracks. Maybe it was because he wasn't the flashy frontman, or maybe it was because his work demanded more from listeners than simple, catchy tunes. But for those who listened, really listened, his genius was impossible to deny. His death in 2024 at just 49 years old was a crushing blow, not just to his fans, but to the world of music itself. Now, his hands that once danced across the keys with impossible speed are still forever. The silence left behind is unbearable. How many more incredible pieces of music could he have given us? How much talent went unrecognized while he was alive? His legacy remains, waiting for those willing to seek it out, but the fact that the world didn't appreciate him enough while he was here is something that should never be forgotten. 17. Blake Harrison, 1976 to 2024. Blake Harrison was not a typical metal musician. He didn't play the guitar, drums, or even sing, yet his presence in Pig Destroyer changed everything. He was the mastermind behind the strange, eerie, and sometimes disturbing electronic elements that made their sound so unique. Without him, the band would have been just another brutal grindcore act. His work added an unsettling, almost nightmarish atmosphere, pushing the limits of what extreme metal could be. And yet, many never realized just how much of an impact he had on their sound. His influence was hidden in the background, woven into the chaos like a ghost haunting the music. But for those who paid attention, it was impossible to miss. He took a genre known for its sheer aggression and added something deeper, layers of sound that made the fury even more intense. He was an innovator, yet his contributions were often overlooked, much like Kuprij's. Why do some of the most creative minds go unnoticed until it's too late? In 2024, at just 48 years old, his life was suddenly cut short. Another brilliant artist, gone too soon. What else could he have created? How much more could he have pushed metal into uncharted territory? The loss of Blake Harrison is more than just the death of one musician. It's the end of a sound, a style, an approach that no one else quite understood the way he did. Now, the music he left behind is all that remains, but it will never be enough. 18. T.M. Stevens, 1951 to 2024. T.M. Stevens wasn't just a bass player, he was a force of nature. His playing wasn't background noise, it was the heartbeat of every song he touched. He had a sound that demanded attention, a mix of rock, funk, and metal that gave every performance its own electric energy. Whether playing alongside Steve Vai, James Brown, or the Pretenders, he brought something that made the music more alive. He was the kind of musician who didn't just play, he performed, throwing his whole soul into every note. So why wasn't he a bigger name? How did someone so talented, so full of energy, not reach the level of fame he truly deserved? Maybe it was because he never played by the industry's rules. Maybe it was because he didn't fit into a single box. He wasn't just rock, just funk, just metal. He was all of it, mixed into one. And sometimes the music world doesn't know what to do with someone like that. Instead of being celebrated, he was often overlooked, even as his bass lines shaped the sounds of legendary artists. Then, in 2024, at the age of 72, his music came to a sudden stop. Another legend gone, another voice in music silenced forever. The world may never fully understand what it lost. His name may not be in the headlines, but his influence runs deep. Those who know his work understand that something truly great has been taken away. The industry will move on, as it always does, but those who really listen will always hear the echoes of his bass, reminding them of the legend that was never given the full recognition he earned. 19. Peter Kubik, 1975 to 2024. Peter Kubik was a mastermind in the world of black metal, yet many metal fans barely knew his name. As a founding member of Abigor, he helped create some of the most haunting and complex black metal compositions ever recorded. His guitar work was more than just fast riffs. It was calculated chaos, weaving atmosphere into the raw aggression of the genre. Black metal has always been a world of the underground, but Kubik's work stood out. Now that he's gone, how many will realize what they've lost? Abigor was never a mainstream success, but that was never the point. The band thrived in the depths of the metal underground, creating music for those who truly sought something different. Kubik pushed the limits of the genre, experimenting with sound and structure in ways others wouldn't dare. But like many underground artists, his work never got the widespread recognition it deserved. His death in 2024, at the age of 49, left a hole in a genre that thrives on pushing boundaries. 20. Juan Brujo, 1963 to 2024. Juan Brujo wasn't just a musician, he was a voice for the unheard. As the frontman of Brujeria, he turned extreme metal into something more than just noise. His band didn't just play fast and loud, they used music as a weapon, tackling political and social issues in a way that few dared to do. Brujeria was mysterious, aggressive, and fearless. Now that Juan Brujo is gone, who will speak for those his music gave a voice to? Brujeria's music wasn't for everyone, and that was exactly the point. With songs that shocked and lyrics that challenged authority, they created a brand of metal that was impossible to ignore. Juan Brujo's vocal delivery was filled with raw power, making each song feel like a battle cry. But in a world where controversy fades quickly, will his work be remembered? His passing in 2024 at the age of 61 marked the end of an era for metal that refused to play by the rules. Mick Moore, 1965 to 2020. Mick Moore played a crucial role in shaping heavy metal, yet his name rarely gets the recognition it deserves. As a bassist for Avenger and Blitzkrieg, he laid down the deep, steady rhythms that gave their music its power. In the 1980s, when heavy metal was at its peak, his work on Bloodsports helped define the raw energy of the new wave of British heavy metal. Later, his contributions to Blitzkrieg's A Time of Changes became part of the foundation that inspired countless metal bands. Despite being a key force in the genre, he never sought fame, and the music world largely overlooked his influence. That kind of talent deserved more than it got. Moore was not a flashy performer or a household name, but the impact of his playing cannot be denied. Without musicians like him, heavy metal would not have reached the heights it did. His death in 2024 at 59 came quietly, leaving fans mourning yet another unrecognized hero of the genre. The music remained loud, but the man behind it left with barely a whisper. 22. Casey Chaos, 1969 to 2024. Casey Chaos, born Karim Chmielinsky, was never one to hold back. His raw energy and unfiltered lyrics made him a defining figure in punk-infused metal, even if mainstream music ignored him. Leading Amen since 1994, he delivered furious vocals and unapologetic songs about rebellion and rage. We Have Come for Your Parents became an anthem of frustration, but despite his undeniable talent, commercial success always seemed just out of reach. His name was never as big as the bands he influenced, yet his music spoke for an entire generation of outsiders. Chaos refused to compromise. He worked with other artists, proving his abilities went far beyond his own band, but he never softened his edge. The industry likes artists it can control, and chaos was never one of them. His death in 2024 at 55 went largely unnoticed outside his dedicated fan base. The mainstream had ignored him in life, and in death, little changed. 23. Eric Sicky Wifebeater. Carlson, 1958 to 2024. Eric Carlson lived for controversy, and the Mentors built their reputation on it. Their music was crude, shocking, and offensive to many, and that was exactly the point. In a world that demanded politeness, the Mentors pushed back, refusing to follow the rules. Carlson's gritty guitar playing gave their sound its bite, fueling a band that thrived on making people uncomfortable. The outrage they sparked only made their fans love them more. Their concerts were wild, their lyrics made headlines, and they faced backlash from every direction, but nothing could stop them. Carlson was at the center of it all, his guitar setting the stage for rebellion. When he passed in 2024 at 66, it was the end of an era. The band that once stood against everything mainstream had finally lost one of its loudest voices. Ricardo Iorio, 1962 to 2023. Ricardo Iorio was more than just a musician. He was a voice for the people. As a founding member of V8 and later the leader of Hermetica and Alma Fuerte, he shaped Argentine heavy metal with his bold lyrics and powerful bass lines. He sang about struggle, national pride, and the realities of working-class life, turning his music into something deeply personal for his fans. Iorio didn't care about trends or fitting into the global metal scene. He created something unique, something that spoke to his country. But passion does not always bring universal respect. Outside of Argentina, his influence was often ignored, despite his role in defining an entire generation of South American metal. His passing in 2023 at 61 came as a blow to those who understood his importance. To the rest of the world, it was just another name fading into history. But for those who knew his work, it was a devastating loss. Sean Blözel, 1966-2024. Sean Blözel had talent that deserved more recognition. As the original guitarist for Sanctuary, he helped shape the band's early success, bringing a distinct sound to their albums. His playing was sharp, filled with the kind of energy that made metal powerful. But like so many musicians who step away from the spotlight, his name faded from public memory over the years. Blözel's departure from Sanctuary marked a turning point, yet his influence on the band's early days remained undeniable. He may not have been the most famous guitarist in metal, but those who knew his work never forgot it. His death in 2024 at 58 was a reminder of how quickly legacies can be forgotten. Some musicians change the game and get remembered forever. Others, no matter how skilled, are left behind.